Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Maddie here, and today I'm going to be wearing this hat because I was out trick-or-treating with my daughter and it was cold outside and I don't want to take the hat off. You're gonna have to deal with it. Anyway, we're talking about upgraded deck lists. That's right. We do this kind of whenever new cards come out, right? Because yes, all of the new Pokemon that came out in Mega Rising are really strong. People are building decks around all of these different new Mega Pokemon, but what about all of the old decks, all of the upgraded decks that are now better through, of course, the other new cards that were released in the set? So that's what we're going to talk about today. As you see up on the screen, we have Charizard. There's a number of, I think, older cards that have gotten buffed after Mega Rising's release. So that's what this video is really all about. For anybody out there that maybe hasn't pulled, all of the new Mega Pokemon to build new decks that are focused around those Pokemon, go ahead and flip through this video. Maybe you can find something that you want to play. So anyway, let's dive right into it. The first thing I'll say, though, is that the support has been incredible on the channel. I really, really appreciate it. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment down below if we missed anything in here or if there's something that you want to have mentioned. All of these decks have done well in recent online tournaments. When this video goes up, by the way, it's going to be Saturday, which is going to be like right in the middle of the Pocket Mats Pocket Tournament number 6. You should go and check out the live stream on Saturday and on Sunday if you want to tune in to the action. Okay. Let's dive right in. The first one we're going to talk about is Charizard, Crimson Storm Charizard, Genetic Apex Charizard. The first thing I'm going to say right now, and again, I need to be completely truthful with you guys, is that I think that the hype for Crimson Storm Charizard was a little bit overblown. And I tried to be nice with people. Again, I was wrong about some things. I was right about some things. You can't be 100% right. But to be fair, I think that Charizard EX is a really strong Pokemon, one of the few Pokemon in Pokemon Pocket that can hit for up to 200 damage, which is definitely impressive, right? Theoretically speaking, against things like an Absol, like a Pinsir, like an Altaria, we can pretty consistently take a one-hit KO, which is, in theory, going to be really strong and help us win the game. However, I don't know if Crimson Storm Charizard is really going to have enough to compete in this new metagame, right? It effectively is a Mega Pokemon. When people say that, they're kind of right. It's got a ton of HP, does a ton of damage, it's kind of a unique Pokemon, especially a year into Pokemon Pocket. Something like a Charizard definitely has the potential to kind of come in and make a little bit of a stir in this new metagame. But the one thing that I will say about Charizard is that it's not nearly as consistent as some of the other Mega Pokemon and their options, right? 200 damage is relevant, but keep in mind, things like Mega Ampharos, things like Blaziken, which is, of course, everywhere, you're not one-hit KOing for 200 damage. They just happen to have 210 HP, likely by design. Yes, we can play Rocky Helmet like we're doing in this deck, which I would recommend. Yes, you can play Giovanni in this deck, which, again, I would recommend. But unfortunately, that's not really the most consistent thing in the world. Charizard always struggled. Really, the best way to get the energies onto Charizard right now is with Moltres, and that's with the Inferno Dance. This is the classic combo of Genetic Apex Charizard and Moltres, but you got to keep in mind that you're not always getting enough energies onto Charizard. Flame Patch does alleviate some of the need to get, 5 or 6 energies onto Charizard. Theoretically speaking, that one energy on Moltres can get recycled, so by the time Moltres gets KO'd, we can go into Charizard, and then, of course, we can Flame Patch up that 4th energy, but the difficulty is still attacking turn after turn. So not only are we reliant on things like Giovanni and Rocky Helmet to take KOs on things like Blaziken and other big Pokemon in the metagame, but we're also reliant on leading Moltres, we're also reliant on flipping coins, and we're also reliant possibly on Flame Patch later in the game. There's just a lot happening with this deck list. It's just a little bit too many moving pieces for me to really feel like it's something that's as worth playing maybe as some of the new Mega Pokemon. Now, it's very early in the season, and I could be wrong about that, but I do think that this Charizard deck has been buffed pretty tremendously, right? When was the last time we saw Crimson Storm Charizard? It has been a while, and I think that this deck list is, as good now as it really has been in a very, very long time. So that's why I wanted to showcase it in this video. I know some people have been curious about it. In fact, the thumbnail will probably have this Charizard deck right on the front, which is why I'm putting it right here at the beginning of the video. Don't click off because we got a bunch of other decks to talk about, but quite frankly, I'm not super confident that this Charizard is going to be, a real player in the metagame, but again, if you wanted to play this deck list, definitely I think that this list that you're seeing here on the screen is probably a really great example, and like I said, it's been buffed pretty dramatically. We do play one of the Fire Spin Charizards. Oricorio does exist. It's just another downside to Charizard of like, okay, we got to also deal with Oricorio because Moltres can't really do it. So it's just a little bit awkward, a little bit too many moving pieces as compared to things like Entei and Blaziken, right? But that 200 damage can be really relevant in certain scenarios. So unfortunately, some of the Pokemon that we would be one-hit KOing, things like Absol, Things like Pinsir, they unfortunately are kind of seeing a lot of play with Oricorio at the moment, so it just kind of makes things a little bit awkward. They also have a lot of really fast pace to them, so keep that in mind. Not a bad deck list, definitely been improved. Will it dominate the metagame? Will it be like a top deck? Probably not. We'll have to wait and see what it does this weekend, but I don't really see that many people playing Charizard, Genetic Apex Charizard. So there we go. Let's move on here to the next deck, which is actually going to be Meowscarada. I'm actually really excited to talk about Meowscarada because I feel like it is very, very, very good right now. Again, it's a single prize Pokemon that hits Mega Pokemon because they are EX Pokemon for 130 damage for 2 Grass Energies. We can play Leaf Cape on this thing to go up to 170 HP. Absolutely insane. Grass is honestly a much better typing now than it kind of has been in the past. Even with Blaziken running around, a Leaf Cape to Meowscarada can actually just live an attack from Mega Blaziken, which is kind of funny, where it couldn't do that with Stoke Charizard, which is kind of a unique breakpoint, right? A very interesting card here. We're able to play it with Pheromosa, which again does 20 to the active, 20 to the bench. Even in not Ultra Beast decks, Pheromosa is just a really, really strong card. We have one of the Dismantling Keys, Klefki's here. This is kind of a niche card, but at the same time, a really fun option to play into the deck list. And then we have, of course, Tempora Leaves Celebi, which is another Pokemon that definitely has a lot of potential. It was kind of unfortunate that, Pinsir and all of the other grass, or I guess that's kind of really the only other grass card. I guess Lilligant came out, but grass really has taken a bit of a back seat in this new metagame since Blaziken came out and was so popular. I think that there's so many cool grass type decks. Meowscarada is one of these rare Pokemon that was relevant previously that has the opportunity to enter back into the metagame just because of the very nature of this card being a single prize Pokemon in a format right now with 3 prize Pokemon, living attacks, as well as hitting for 130 damage. Just a very, very relevant card here. Meowscarada is still going to struggle with a lot of the same things, but it has been buffed with the inclusion of things like Copycat and May, which are very, very important supporter cards that make this deck that much more consistent, which we absolutely love to see. Again, early game pressure, Pheromosa, Celebi can be a little bit of a cheat code as well. I do like Celebi in a variety of different matchups, but definitely one of my favorite cards in this new metagame as well. Yeah, I just really wanted to mention Meowscarada. I don't know if it's on a lot of people's radars, but again, if you really stop to think about it, like, yeah, this makes sense, right? I mean, Mega Pokemon are EXs. Meowscarada with Leaf Cape is living an attack from literally all of the Mega Pokemon and hits them for 130 damage. Definitely a really, really strong Pokemon. One of my favorites here. We're not playing any healing in the deck, but that's because I don't think we're really living 2 attacks ever. So you just want to live that 1 attack with Leaf Cape, and then again, including things like May to more consistently get our evolution Pokemon, and then Copycat. Copycat is a really, really strong card. In fact, in this moment right now with the video, I'm going to talk about one thing in particular, which is the discrepancy between those 2 new supporter cards, which are massive changes to the metagame which have happened due to their inclusion. So May is really strong. Copycat is really strong. I was talking really heavily about May because it was announced, of course, before we saw Copycat. But what we're seeing right now is actually probably Copycat seeing a little bit more play in general. And there's really one reason for that. And I think it really boils down to this one fact right now. We're going on a bit of a tangent. Hold on, stay with me here. You don't really need to play May if you're running a draw engine such as things like Entei or Raikou or Suicune or Sylveon, which a lot of the decks in the metagame are. But keep in mind, if you're not running a draw engine, then you're probably going to be going up against your opponent who is running a draw engine, which means that Copycat becomes a lot more relevant because if you're going up against Suicune or Entei or Sylveon, they're going to have a lot of cards in their hands. So instead of playing May, you would rather play Copycat. So May is in this really weird in the middle where I think it's specifically definitely a good card in some decks, but in most scenarios, people are oftentimes just not playing it, or they're playing a draw supporter, or they're playing Copycat to sort of get on par with those draw support decks. So anyway, that's a tangent. I really like Meowscarada. I just wanted to mention it. It's not something maybe that many people have been talking about, so shout out to Meowscarada. Definitely give it a try. One of the few, I think, single prize archetypes right now. There's actually another one in this video that we'll take a look at, but one of the few like pure single prize archetypes that I think has a lot of potential right now as like an actual attacking option. It's a very unique Pokemon. Next up though, let's talk about Jolteon EX. You might be like, Maddie, what are you talking about? Jolteon's a new Pokemon. This is a new deck list. Look closely, okay? Just divert your vision real quick. Think about this deck a little bit differently. What does this deck resemble to you that was very, very popular last season? It's literally the same deck. And what does it look like? It looks like Tapu Koko, Zero Aura, Pikachu. That deck list is this deck list. Instead of Tapu Koko, we're playing Jolteon. And I actually do like Jolteon as a replacement for Tapu Koko quite a bit, right? Because we have access to Electrical Cord still, Zero Aura, Elemental Switch. Jolteon can get damage off really, really early. And with the, of course, boosted Evolution Eevee and Electromagnetic Wall, it actually ends up being a little bit more damage than Tapu Koko would have done in like a couple of turns, right? So 80 plus the damage from Electromagnetic Wall. It's definitely relevant. It also has 10 more HP than Tapu Koko, which is pretty unique. And again, we can play Zero Aura, we can play Oricorio, we can play Pikachu just like we did in that Tapu Koko Pikachu deck from back in the day. So I'm seeing a lot of different Jolteon decks. This one for me, I'm including, not because it's playing Jolteon. I know Jolteon is a new card here. However, this specific way to build Jolteon EX is definitely a little bit more akin to like the previous deck with Tapu Koko, which is why I'm basically showcasing it, because again, most of the deck operates the exact same. We're just replacing Tapu Koko with Jolteon. So that's why it's in this video. Okay, don't get on my back. We'll cover a different Jolteon deck that to me is like just an actual new archetype in a later video today. Upgraded decks. Jolteon to me feels like an upgrade to Tapu Koko in some ways, for sure, right? So I really like this. And again, one Copycat, one May. We're going to see that a lot. A lot of decks are just better now because May and Copycat. And if you're not playing rare candies and you're not playing like Mega Evolutions and stuff, I think a lot of old decks have a little bit more space in their deck to be playing Copycat and May, which in general are really, really strong cards that you're likely going to see all over the metagame. Those two cards alone have completely changed things. So one thing that I actually do really like, which again isn't in this deck list, but it is sort of a new strategy with the boosted Evolution Eevee, is actually going to be Jolteon, but not the EX Jolteon and not the Pin Missile Jolteon. I'm talking about the boost, what is it? I forget the name of the attack, but it's the one that attacks for a single energy, and the turn you evolve, it deals 60 damage. This is a very, very unique Pokemon because, again, with boosted Evolution Eevee, you can actually evolve into that Jolteon on the same turn, effectively your first turn going second, and then deal 60 damage. It's like the only thing in the game that can do that other than like cards that play Giovanni, which is very unique, right? That's a very unique aspect of that Jolteon card, which again, if you think about it, a lot of these basic Pokemon in the game are 60 HP Pokemon. So being able to KO a Torchic in the active spot on turn 1 is absolutely hilarious. So maybe we'll cover that in a future video, but I do think that these sort of hyper aggressive, Jolteon decks have a ton of potential. And this is going to be an upgraded version again of that same Zero Aura Tapu Koko Pikachu deck, except now replacing Tapu Koko with Jolteon. Moving on, let's talk about Alolan Exeggutor, huh? Let's just talk about Alolan Exeggutor, right? To me, Pinsir is really, really cool, but again, it's kind of awkward. It's just an awkward card because, you kind of want it as like a late game sweeper, but in the same time, like, what's the front end of the deck? What are we playing? I think some people were playing Leafeon, Mega Pinsir, which felt fine, but at the same time, Blaziken exists and Entei exists, and it just it couldn't really hang up to that specific matchup. So what I've seen a lot of people doing is kind of playing Pinsir similar to how we were playing Absol and Pikachu and Darkrai with, of course, Oricorio, right? So, not Pikachu, but Pichu. So, yeah, we're playing Pichu, Oricorio. That package we're actually seeing fit into a lot of different decks because Pichu can set up, Mega Pinsir, it can set up Alolan Exeggutor, and it can also set up Oricorio, right? Which is really, really cool. Technically, you can't set up Alolan Exeggutor, but you can attach to Execute, which sets up Alolan Exeggutor. So keep that in mind. All of the targets in the deck for Pichu do work, and they all have colorless energy in their attack cost. And again, if we're playing Will and we're playing Pinsir, why not play Alolan Exeggutor, which again is a single prize Pokemon. One of my favorite archetypes in the game right now are like decks that are playing all single prize Pokemon and then like a Mega, right? Because the prizing kind of fits to me like the best that way. I think we're actually seeing that happen with Blaziken a bit right now as well. Altaria is kind of doing the same thing with baby Pokemon. And Chingling, which will likely be the next deck that we cover here on the video. But yeah, it's Alolan Exeggutor, right? So not every Pinsir deck will be playing Alolan Exeggutor. In fact, this deck is only playing one Mega Pinsir, and it is a bit more focused around Alolan Exeggutor. It's a little bit more awkward now because, Alolan Exeggutor isn't taking a lot of one-hit KOs. So that's the reality of it. But I think we're kind of buffering that with Oricorio as a Pokemon that we can kind of use periodically or in the early game for those matchups for decks that just struggle with Oricorio, and then we can utilize Alolan Exeggutor after that, and then maybe after that as well, we can go into Mega Pinsir. So it's definitely a unique deck. It kind of is split down the middle in two different ways, whether you want to go the Oricorio route, the Exeggutor route, or the Mega Pinsir route later in the game. Just a really unique deck. And I think that Alolan Exeggutor, kind of fits in here. It's definitely a little bit strange. I don't know if the best way to play this entire, Lightning Oricorio Grass combo here will be with Alolan Exeggutor, but I saw this list. It did well recently at a tournament. Alolan Exeggutor, to me, it has been somewhat upgraded by just the inclusion of Mega Pinsir, which again, isn't necessarily adding anything to this strategy. strategy, but it is just sort of there in case you need to use it, right? So there you go. Alolan Exeggutor, definitely one of my favorites. Next up, let's talk about Sylveon Espeon. You know, I think that most people are playing Altaria in a bit of a different way, but I think when people first saw Mega Altaria, they kind of thought, well, this is a card we can kind of just throw into Sylveon Espeon, and then once maybe one of our Sylveon Espeon go down, we can go into a Mega Altaria rather, instead of like going into that second Sylveon or Espeon. So that's what this deck is kind of all about. Tons of Pokemon in here. We can utilize Licia, but that's really what this deck is all about, is just playing double Sylveon, playing Espeon, absolutely tearing through our deck, just drawing so many cards, and then having a Mega Altaria. So again, like it's kind of the similar thing to like the Mega Pinsir deck where, you know, maybe if you only have one copy of Mega Altaria, then you can build the deck like this. The Do the Wave Altaria is also really interesting. We're electing to play that Altaria instead of like a non-EX Sylveon or Espeon to get around Oricorio. I really do like this Altaria card because it can do, I think, what is it? I forget, it's like 80 or 100 damage with a full bench, which is pretty relevant, to be fair. You know, we're one at KOing Oricorio. Oricorio does hit us for weakness, right? But again, we're living in attack regardless. So it ends up being like actually a pretty good counter meta option for 2 colorless energies as well. So I really like this deck. Let's talk about Indeedee a little bit. So I think the Altaria deck that we showcased on, not yesterday's video, but the day before, was like the Giratina Indeedee version. I don't know if that's necessarily the version that most people are going to be moving towards. I think that the baby Pokemon combo, like Chingling, Jirachi type stuff with Mega Altaria might be the wave. What we're seeing right now is just a little bit more of a favor between single prize Pokemon paired with Megas than like having like a normal EX 2 prizer and then into a Mega. It just sort of ends up being sort of the way that people are electing to play the deck, which I find to be definitely kind of interesting. So anyway, yeah, I mean, it's Sylveon Espeon and then Mega Altaria thrown in, right? I think a lot of people had this type of a deck envisioned in their brain when they were kind of thinking, oh, how should we play Mega Altaria? Luckily, like Jirachi came out and Chingling came out, which are 2 really strong partners for Mega Altaria. So I think a lot of people have kind of pivoted from this particular strategy and this concept to sort of the newer Altaria concept, which, by the way, I will say Mega Altaria was massively slept on. It is probably one of the best cards in the entire game. I would not be surprised because, again, it's weak to metal. And, like, can you name one metal card or steel type card that anybody's playing in the game right now? You can. It's got 190 HP as a stage 1 Pokemon. It does 130. This card is broken. Like, this, as far as Mega Pokemon go, Mega Altaria might actually be the best. I know everybody's on the Blaziken train, Flame Patch. I get it. I totally get it. But you don't have to play rare candies, right? It's actually a really, really strong card. I think that once we're 2-3 weeks into the metagame, Mega Altaria might be the guy. He might be him. And again, it's just like, what are we really playing to counter Mega Altaria, right? There's just nothing, like, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? So I find that to be very interesting. Here's a version of Sylveon Espeon, just kind of with it thrown in. Maybe not how people will be playing Altaria moving forward, but it is definitely interesting and an upgrade technically to Sylveon Espeon. So let's talk about that. Next up is going to be another similar sort of thing here. Okay, listen, I know Hitmonchan EX is a new card. I get that, okay? Don't go into the comment section and be like, these are new decks because you're playing, you know, one new card in the deck. Like, I get it. Like, but keep in mind, this is a Rampo deck. This is Rampardos. Instead of playing like Silvally or whatever people used to play with Rampardos, we're playing Hitmonchan. And I think that Hitmonchan Rampardos is actually a pretty quality deck list. Because we're playing fossils, I guess we're playing one copy of Chingling, but if we weren't playing Chingling and Hitmonlee, then theoretically speaking, you'd be guaranteed to lead Hitmonchan, which is definitely pretty cool. And look at that. Copycat. Copycat is a broken card, guys. It really is. And a deck list like this that, again, would struggle going into or going up against like Suicune, Entei, Raikou decks, you can play Copycat and you can get right back into that card advantage and basically have the same amount of cards in deck as your opponent. A lot of people liked to play Iono back in the day with some of these fossil decks, specifically Rampardos. Like, so now I think Copycat literally is just a better Iono. So again, a massive buff to Rampardos in the fighting type decks. I get that Hitmonchan is a little bit of a meme, okay? I'm not going to sit here and tell you like Hitmonchan is an absolute banger and it's going to stomp through the format. Definitely not a bad card. And I think that it was put into the game specifically as counterplay to things like Swablu and a lot of these other basic Pokemon that people are actually choosing to play, or I guess have been buffed with the inclusion of Licia, right? So Hitmonchan is a direct counter to those sort of Licia, I don't know how to say it, those decks like, Altaria and whatnot that have 50 HP basics, right? And we're not hitting for weakness, I get that, but I think that they're definitely trying to move towards pushing people to playing like baby Pokemon as well as like 50 HP basic Pokemon, Licia decks, and Hitmonchan is a counterplay to that, right? So I know right now it might not be that relevant. Theoretically speaking, you could play, somebody's probably going to mention you could play, you know, double Giovanni and then one hit KO the 60 HP basics. Like maybe you do, right? Maybe you definitely can do that. But I think that this player here or whoever built this deck list is actually going to be choosing to be playing like Chingling as like a counterplay to some of those rare candy decks like Blaziken that have 60 HP basics. So this deck did well recently at a tournament. Actually, I think I saw a couple of people playing this list, and I really like it. And I actually like. It's so funny to me because I don't think anybody saw Hitmonchan and was like, yo, like, let's go. We're playing Hitmonchan Rampardos. I can't wait. You know, like, I don't know if anybody really was super, you know, that excited for it, but I think it is quality. And again, Rampardos is the core of the deck. Like if you win games, it's because of Rampardos. So I think the whole concept here, Hitmonchan is just kind of a replacement as that front end to Rampardos decks, which used to be like Silvally or some whatever else, you know what I mean? So, or Dawn, I guess Dawn Fan would mean maybe another option, but I think Hitmonchan is actually not a bad card whatsoever. So here you go. Upgraded Rampardos, probably the best way to play it right now. Maybe we get some more fighting support later in the game. Who knows, man? I mean, come on now. I mean, Hitmonchan was all we got, quite frankly. And we got Archeops. No one's playing Archeops. Rampardos is still the king of fighting types. And you know what? I said it before, like I get fighting hasn't gotten a lot of support, and I know some people are like pretty upset about that, but you got to understand how broken of a card Rampardos is, that like it's a very slippery slope. Like you start adding in fighting support and all of a sudden it's just Rampo meta and everybody's playing Rampardos and everybody's just losing, you know, like, so you got to be a little bit careful. I think Rampardos is still one of the better cards in the entire game. Absolutely insane card. So anyway, there we go. Upgraded Rampardos. Next up, let's talk about Greninja, because to be fair, this deck list hasn't really changed at all. This list is playing one copy of May. I do think that May does make this deck a little bit better. Not only do we get the draw support for Suicune, but we can effectively guarantee that these Greninjas are coming out with Suicune, with May, and it just is extremely consistent. Now, I know this deck list hasn't really changed a lot at all, but I still wanted to talk about it because in early meta tournaments, in fact, this weekend, I'm actually afraid of Greninja, because it is the quintessential like control deck, right? Like Oricorios, Irida, Greninjas, like there's just not a lot you can do unless you're playing a Pokemon specifically that just one KOs Oricorio and then like can live the damage from Greninja as well. And there's not that many options for that. Like you got to keep in mind. So I think that this deck list is really good in this early metagame. Again, not something that maybe a lot of people want to play, but if you're trying to win the Pocket Bands number 6 tournament, this is likely going to be a good option. Again, this video will come out probably 4 p.m. or so on Saturday, like after the first day of competition. So maybe this does really well, maybe it doesn't, but in various smaller tournaments since the Mega Evolution or Mega Rising set was released, this deck has been performing very well. Okay, so it hasn't changed really that much, but I think that it's been upgraded in terms of its placement in the metagame and its positioning in the metagame. And again, I do think that May is definitely a strong inclusion here. So yeah, man, I mean, it's Greninja. Like it's such an annoying deck list. Being able to basically snipe Mega Pokemon, bring them in, and then just deal damage with Oricorio, it really is like a tough thing to get around. This deck list here, I think will likely remain relevant for quite some time. Greninja's really strong. Some people might be like, what about Greninja EX? What about that? Stay tuned later in the video. Coming up soon. Don't go anywhere. Next up though, let's talk about Luxray. Let's talk about it, because I completely disrespected this new Luxray, because to be fair, I entirely forgot Volkner existed. I really did. And this new Luxray is actually pretty cool. 110 damage for 2 energies, which again, if you understand what this means, is that you can basically do a free 110 damage. So you can play this with the other Luxray, which can snipe the bench. So now we effectively have, you know, like 2 different types of Luxrays that do 2 different things. Let's pair it with Oricorio and Zero Aura. We know how strong Oricorio is in the early game. I really like this. And because it's an entirely single prize archetype. So Oricorio can kind of stall for a bit, and then we can kind of go into Luxray, maybe snipe a Mega on the bench, bring it up with Cyrus, and then KO it with Zero Aura or a second Luxray. You know what I mean? Like it's really fun. It's a really good deck list. Not something that I kind of really thought of at all, to be honest with you, but has been massively buffed. Like I think this new Luxray really is kind of a big deal. And with Mega Pokemon, Luxray, even the old one, the Bolt Luxray, is a really big deal, because like doing 120 damage to the bench is a lot of damage, right? Like you can hit a Mega Pokemon like once or twice with Oricorio, and then they retreat into their other Mega, and you just go, hey, GG, bro. Like, sorry, you know what I mean? And just Bolt, bam, take the KO. That's 3 prizes, right? So, you know, KOing a bench Pokemon for 120 definitely used to be relevant. Like Luxray was always a good Pokemon, but now taking 3 prizes off of a 1 attack bench snipe attack for Bolt, like it actually is kind of crazy. So again, a deck list that did fairly well recently. So shout out to Luxray. Definitely a little bit niche, but it is sort of the other like purely single prize archetype that in this video, I think there was like only, what was there? Was there like 2 of them? 1 of them? Yeah, I guess there was Meowscarada, Exeggutor, and then also this one, right? So I think that the pure single prize archetypes that have these really unique, heavy-hitting Pokemon, Meowscarada, Luxray, Exeggutor, there actually is, I guess the Exeggutor one was playing Pinsir, so I guess I was wrong about that. But anyway, you get what I'm saying, right? So very unique deck lists, and I think that they're actually fairly uniquely well-positioned. Like a deck list like this and the Meowscarada deck, for not having any EX cards or like any rare cards in your deck really at all, you can build an extremely competitive deck even in this new metagame, which is just very unique, which is why I really wanted to mention those 2 decks, or these 2 decks in this video, because I mean, like, you know, I mean, I don't know. I thought it was cool. Do you guys think it's cool? Comment down below if I missed anything in this video, but I'm really just talking about decks that have specifically done well in, you know, the metagame in online tournaments so far. Ranked battles don't exist until the 27th. They're not out yet, so like we have to wait all of this month, which is why I think we're going to be very reliant on like the tournament metagame, not only to compete, but to move the metagame forward, which to be honest, it really always has because the data is available and ranked battles never really had that data. So to be fair, I think that the ranked metagame was always based off of the competitive tournament metagame, and now there's no ranked, so it really is just the competitive tournament metagame. So anyway, another tangent there. Let's wrap up this video by talking about Suicune Greninja, because Numentale, Pocket Mad's tournament champion, one of the best players in the entire game, historically over the last couple of seasons, potentially the best Suicune Greninja player, actually went 7-0 at a recent large tournament with this deck list. So I'm going to give him a shout out specifically. This is literally, and I mean this, guys, this is literally Suicune Greninja, but now we have Greninja EX, which actually is a buff to this deck. So we need to really realize something here, is that Suicune Greninja lacks one thing in its sort of basic structure, which is that everything in the deck kind of does get one-hit KO'd by a lot of Pokemon, right? Like there's just a lot of pressure in the metagame right now, so if you're not one-hit KOing, you don't want to get one-hit KO'd. You don't even want to have that to be a possibility, and Suicune definitely can get one-hit KO'd at 140 HP by Blaziken and varying other new decks as well, so like it's a little bit tricky. However, I still think Suicune Greninja is a very, very strong deck, and I think it will remain relevant in the metagame. I personally saw this Greninja EX and I was like, this card just doesn't seem that bad. I figure the other Greninja is probably better. And like, yeah, I think that's probably the case. But the thing is that Greninja EX here is just an additional option. Like we can play, I forgot, like you can literally just play Greninja EX on top of the other Greninjas. So it's like, wait a minute. So now we just have 3 Greninjas in the deck? Like that seems a little bit crazy. We are playing 1 copy of May as well because we have varying different Pokemon here. Whether we draw Giratina later in the game, it can be May bait, like sort of a May, a sacrificial May card here to swap it with something else. Just a really, really sound deck list. I think that Suicune Greninja is likely going to continue to be a top meta deck. I know not many people are playing it right now, but this deck list and this whole kind of package here, Suicune and Greninja, has the potential to just win this weekend. People are going to be so mad. It's so funny to me because people, and I said this too, people are going to be so mad if Suicune Greninja wins this weekend with most of the tournament playing Blaziken. Like they're going to be like, oh, you know, why, come on, and this meta is horrible, Suicune wins again, and then like, you know, everybody was playing Blaziken, they were playing Fire, like, what do you expect out of us, you know what I mean? Greninja's really cool, it hits for weakness on Blaziken, but it lives in attack from Blaziken, very, very unique in that sense, but you also got to keep in mind of that effect, right? That shifting streams effect actually basically gives all of the water Pokemon in this deck free retreat, which, you know, last time I checked is kind of broken, right? So now Suicune Greninja also is like Solgaleo kind of thrown in, kind of broken. So to be fair, Greninja EX here, even though like on paper it didn't seem like that strong of a card, it's like, hey, we can literally just throw it into Suicune Greninja as it existed already, along with like maybe 1 copy of May, and then all of a sudden, you know, the deck's broken, you know what I mean? Double Giant Cape. Numentale was playing 1 Irida. I don't know if that Irida is necessarily that important. Maybe it is, maybe against like Oricorio decks, just to kind of have extra sustain, but interesting nonetheless. I think the 2 Giant Capes is definitely relevant. Mars definitely relevant. Cyrus definitely relevant, and I think May is a big buff here. But again, we had to cut something from the deck to play Greninja, which is why we're not playing like Repel or anything, so, or Leaf for that matter. So that's kind of the other, I guess, inconsistency about this deck, but no, I'm going to end the video here telling people right now, and again, maybe this is the #1 seed of of the tournament today. I'm recording this on Friday. We don't know. We have no way of knowing. This deck list might win this weekend because nobody's really nobody's really thinking about it. You know what I mean? So we'll see. I do think Greninja EX basically can be thrown into Suicune and just completely buff the deck, which, you know, to be honest, is kind of crazy. It's wild that they even did that. Like, the fact that we got a Greninja EX is crazy, and the fact that it does fit into Suicune Greninja and make it better is also crazy, right? I mean, very bold of Dina to do. The developers here saying, hey, you know what? I don't think, you know, we want Suicune Greninja to continue, right? We want this to remain a relevant archetype. Greninja EX kind of does work as the Mega Pokemon here because we don't really have like a water Mega Pokemon that pairs with Suicune. Like, we have a Mega Pokemon that pairs with Raikou or a Mega Pokemon that pairs with Entei, right? Because Gyarados doesn't really work that well with Suicune because of the high energy attack cost. Greninja kind of doesn't have that issue, which is definitely pretty cool. So the free retreat is crazy. It really is. It's not a free retreat, but it's like basically a free switch between your water Pokemon. It allows you to kind of go into Suicune for free into Greninja, which means that we kind of have that flexibility there, which is definitely really cool. And Suicune no longer forces you to attach those energies. Like, that's really strong. Imagine playing Entei Blaziken. Well, they have Flame Patch, but like, imagine playing Entei Blaziken, but instead of having Flame Patch, you just can retreat for free. Like, that's kind of crazy, right? So anyway, there it is. There's the video, guys. Comment down below. What do you guys think of these updated decks? Do you have anything else on the top of your head that's maybe old but has been upgraded and updated with some of the new cards here in B1? I would love to hear it down in the comment section below. Try out all of these decks. Best of luck to everybody that were competing this weekend. Definitely stay tuned to the live streams. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. It is very, very late in the night. I've been very busy testing deck lists, making videos, going live. I don't even remember the last time I slept. But anyway, there it is. Peace out. Have a good one. We'll see you guys later. Another video tomorrow, possibly, I assume. Anyway, yeah. Bye.